Spontaneous Ascension, Stunning New Evidence. By David Wilcock, September 24, 2015. Get ready for the wave. The crown jewel of our scientific research into Ascension has come in for a landing, quite unexpectedly, since we got to Canada on a writer's retreat for the month of September. This new data, which will be fully presented in our upcoming 2016 book, lends powerful new evidence to the idea that a spontaneous celestial event will massively alter life on Earth as we know it. The timing of these events is fluid in nature and depends upon our mass consciousness, so even the best estimates are only informed speculation. Nonetheless, a shocking new burst of prophetic data came through that indicated we are only looking at a few years after 2012 as our main window. Hardly anyone is talking about this energetic tsunami and hardly anyone will believe it. That doesn't change the fact that the evidence in favor of this is huge. Some have consistently argued in favor of a gradual model, with no sudden event happening at once, but in light of the new data that is very unlikely. So let's dive in and go for it. The water is fine. As long as you are not wicked. The Bible contains profound mysteries not yet understood. This quest started by digging deeper into the Bible than ever before, and looking for every quote I could find that was related to Ascension. What astonished me was that by simply reading the main books of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, it became clear that references are consistently being dropped to a massive celestial event in our own imminent future. Although no one knoweth the hour, nor the day, there are plenty of signs that we are closing in on the moment of truth itself. The prophecies clearly indicate this event is of profound personal and spiritual significance, tantamount to a transfiguration of what it means to be human. It is a natural evolutionary leap, built into the basic design of the universe, intended to ensure we don't stay stuck in a negative rut for too long. Your letters tell us one of the strongest points of our material has always been the verifiable scientific data we present in favor of this mysterious concept. That case has now grown by leaps and bounds in only 1 month. It is going to take time to integrate it all together in a responsible, presentable fashion. This is just a preliminary announcement that a major breakthrough has been made, along with a brief presentation of some of the new data. This is a multicultural, multilateral dataset. This data correlates remarkably well with information that can be found in a variety of different ancient traditions, many of which I did not find until this month. It truly feels as if I have been flying blind this whole time. It is unbelievable. And it all started with popping one word into the search engines. For whatever reason, I had never been guided to do this research before now. Had I bothered to go looking for this data before, it would have profoundly affected all of my previous works, lectures and articles. In upcoming lectures in my book on Ascension that is due out next year, I will be able to prove that many independent ancient cultures predicted an event. This event is said to involve a huge flash of light from the sun. It is somehow multidimensional. After this event happens, life as we know it is permanently altered. Unless you are trending heavily towards the negative in your personality, that is manipulative, controlling and selfish, this will be a very positive event. If you are routinely getting angry at people, feeling attacked and defensive and confronting them, I would highly recommend changing those behaviors. A 15-year time loop was just the cherry on top. If you are a long-time reader of this site, then you know I very actively did benevolent psychic readings from December 1996 to mid-2000. It quickly tapered off after that as my life became ever increasingly traumatic and stressful. This occurred as I started reading up on the Illuminati. Dreams and readings from 15 years ago have now revealed a time loop that identified dozens of specific, precise details within my immediate present. The loop told me I needed to go through a 15-year series of crushingly difficult initiations to be prepared to receive the full story of the event. I discovered the loop after arriving in Banff as of September 1, 2015, when I was gently guided to go back and read my dream transcripts from March 2000. Almost immediately, I encountered shockingly specific references to my current geographical location, as well as what I was thinking, seeing and doing now. These events and connections are so precise as to demolish any possibility of coincidence, and have caused me to experience staggering cosmic highs. I have had many time loops before, but this one is particularly shocking, and includes published data that was time-stamped to the year 2000 on this website. The simple question is why? If you are a regular reader of this site or others such as Vigilant Citizen, you are well aware that we are being practically drowned in occult imagery from pop culture. The Cabal or so-called Illuminati are becoming ever more blatant in their display of what most would consider satanic symbolism. One simple question keeps coming up: why? Why do they hate the epic hero story and teachings of Jehoshua so much? At this point, honestly, what's the big deal? Does it really even matter anymore? Why keep pounding us with the same message, over and over again, when the damage has already been done? Why would they be so angry about this one religion that they still hammer it as hard as they can? Day after day, week after week, year after year? Churches are going out of business at an ever-accelerating speed. If you look throughout Europe, most of the churches have gone out of business. If the Cabal had anything to do with this, they have done a damn good job. Only 8% of the European population attended any type of religious service, through any spiritual faith, as of 2006. In America, the tradition of going to church on Sunday isn't faring a whole lot better, outside the Bible Belt, and even there it is fading fast. This next set of statistics was current as of 2006, almost a decade ago, and the trend has certainly accelerated since then. Statistics and reasons for rapid church decline. Current data as of 2006, every year more than 4,000 churches close their doors compared to just over 1,000 new church starts. Every year, 2.7 million church members fall into inactivity. From our research, we have found that they are leaving as hurting and wounded victims of some kind of abuse, disillusionment, or just plain neglect. From 1990 to 2000, the combined membership of all Protestant denominations in the USA declined by almost 5 million members, 9.5%, while the U.S. population increased by 24 million, 11%. At the turn of the last century, 1900, there was a ratio of 27 churches per 10,000 people, as compared to the close of this century, 2000, where we have 11 churches per 10,000 people in America. What has happened? Half of all churches in the U.S. did not add any new members to their ranks in the last 2 years. More startling data, between 1992 and 2002, 77% to 87%, 160 million in 1992, of Americans identify themselves as Christians in most studies. However, what constitutes a Christian or a churchgoer is the question. One study that I did between 1992 and 2002 had surprising results. I found that church attendance may be half what those survey results stated. Many polls have indicated that the percentage of people who regularly attend a church service in the United States is around 40% to 50%, 20% in Canada, and 8% or less in Europe. But, when we started to count people from denominational reports and compare them to census data and university research data, the numbers that were originally declared dropped by half. 22% of Americans frequently attended church in 1992, including Orthodox, Evangelical, or Protestant. 20.5% of Americans frequently attended church in 1995, by frequently he means an average of once a week, instead of 2-3 times a year. 19% of Americans frequently attended church in 1999, 18.0% of Americans frequently attended in church in 2002. Now, by extrapolating the data and doing some statistical evaluation and adding some hope for revival, we can see the figures drop to 15% of Americans in attendance at a church by 2025, and a further drop to 11% or 12% in 2050. Actually, the trend is 1% per 3 years, meaning by 2015 it would be 4.3% less than 2002, or 13.7% of Americans. Who gives a fluff? If you are within that 86+% category who has given up on traditional religion, You probably couldn't care less about these statistics. Organized religion is frequently criticized by those within the majority group for nurturing an us versus them cult mentality. The cabal could thump away on Christianity all they wanted, and for years I really didn't pay any attention to it. My view of what constitutes a positive, loving and forgiving spiritual path is quite different than what we see in most organized religions. Those within religious circles often see themselves as spiritual elites, and all others as being ignorant, objectionable, even doomed. As aspects of the dogma are challenged, their answer is often to respond with forceful condemnation and shame-dumping rather than healthy debate. Just like highly intelligent skeptics on the internet, who claim to be experts in all areas of science and to have a monopoly on truth, you cannot argue with them. Furthermore, this social schism has been monetized by the political elite, pandering to far-right Christians to secure votes while continuing business as usual. There is no real battle between a supposedly liberal and conservative media, it is a fake-out. They are both owned and controlled by the cabal. Actually, it's just the opposite of Christian values. It is becoming increasingly obvious that the people seeking Christian votes are about as anti-Christian as anyone on earth ever gets. This is such a huge betrayal that many people still cannot face it, even as the evidence becomes overwhelmingly undeniable. The amusements of Trump's campaign in the Republican Party do show that the American people have no interest in a Bush versus Clinton boxing match. As of today, a Drudge Report headline reveals that Bush is only in 6th place among the Republican contenders, and those are likely manipulated polls. Go home, Bush. You're drunk. You've had quite the joyride and we need our car back. Just give us the keys. Nice and easy now. A rapacious elite culture. The veil has now been pulled back to reveal a rapacious elite culture, built around the worship and practice of what most of us would call evil. You don't have to go poking around in murky internet tales of the Bohemian Grove to find it, either. According to the UK Daily Express, one of Britain's top TV talents, the main MC for pop music through the 60s and 70s, was a satanic pedophile. There were only 3 TV stations in the UK for some time, BBC One, BBC Two and ITV. If you wanted to see what was hot in music, you watched Top of the Pops. Jimmy Savile was its main host from 1964 to 1975, introducing the British and European public to all the biggest names in pop music. He then went on to have a top TV show until 2006 that allegedly satisfied the wishes of children who wrote in, entitled Jim'll Fix It. It gets a lot worse. During this time, Savile financed and regularly attended 28 different hospitals throughout the UK. The Daily Express revealed there was a secret room within at least one of the hospitals, Stoke Mandeville, where Savile and others subjected young victims to satanic ritual abuse. This included wearing robes and masks and chanting Ave Satanas, or Hail Satan in Latin, while performing acts of rape and torture by candlelight. The number of rape victims who have come forward now number well over 450, making Savile perhaps the most insidious documented pedophile of all time. Remember, Savile was routinely interacting with a veritable who's who list of all the top names in the music industry. You don't have to look very far. This is not a Divine Cosmos exclusive. It's what ordinary Britons are reading. In their own headlines. The satanic aspect is usually not included in the discussion, but it isn't that hard to find if you spend some time reading, such as in the Daily Express. These crimes are so serious that in any normal situation, even one accusation of this nature should have utterly devastated his entire career. This is all a part of an ongoing, ever-increasing investigation by the British police. The story is definitely not over. Something wicked this way comes. And it's the real truth about the monster under the bed of Western governments. This is just one of many dozens of glaring, 5-alarm fire bell clues that we are on the verge of a massive data dump of new evidence. If you think they didn't know. If you think Savile's media handlers at the BBC didn't know what he was doing, I am sorry. But this is the result of paralyzing terror hidden behind a wall of denial. Most Americans are completely unaware of the story, thanks to exceptional media control, but here we have Cosby, America's dad, raping dozens of women. The truth is so ugly, so gut-churningly horrible and revolting, that most people protect themselves from the shock of it by simply looking away. Both of these stories have permanently altered how we see the shows we once loved. And there is almost certainly far more that has yet to be revealed. Cosby is still walking around a free man as the accusations continue. And no one in the media has been implicated in helping to conceal his crimes. It is very important to spread public awareness. Civil also had undeniable and obvious connections to the very highest levels of the political elite in the UK. Top politicians are ever increasingly being implicated in pedophilia rings there as well. Having personally counseled survivors of child sexual abuse, I can honestly say nothing is more traumatizing to the human spirit than being raped as a child. If the media ever allowed a proper discussion of the traumatology of rape, I would sincerely hope it would happen far less often than it does now. Even one event of this nature can create damage that the person has to live with every day, for the rest of their lives, requiring serious therapy to address. I counseled 500 different people in the 8 years I had a practice, and this issue was surprisingly common, which is tragic. It is possible to return to a healthy, happy life. That can only happen by breaking through the denial and admitting to yourself that you had the experience. From there, you recognize that you are an adult now, and you have vastly greater tools to prevent it from happening again than you did as a child. There is love in the world, and your life does not need to be defined by horrors in your past that cannot be changed. Each day is a new beginning. This battle is very real. That being said, these people are still out there. For now. It is a documented fact. I understand why you might not want to look at it, as it is very horrible, but that doesn't change the reality of our situation. There he goes again. Mr. Love and Light, talking about this satanic crap. I don't need to hear it. I thought this was about Ascension. Next. Apparently we do need to hear it, because these crimes are still going on. If we don't face it, and deal with it, we are indirectly turning our backs on the victims. What I am calling Ascension is a process we are all going through collectively. Just as is the case with individual healing, in order to make the greatest spiritual leaps, we have to face that one thing we are resisting the most. And do something about it. Once you understand the physics of consciousness, you will see that compassion, patience and forgiveness is a revolutionary act, especially now. The alliance is far greater and more organized than most people realize. There are positive elements within our governments, militaries and intelligence circles who have known these crimes are going on. All along. They have steadily and consistently fought against this influence, which is ultimately a religious cult whose roots go all the way back to the Roman Empire. Although you may have only learned about these things recently, and feel as if it is a new truth that only arose with the internet, that is not true for everyone. Despite the overwhelming money and power of the secret Earth government syndicates, they have been steadily opposed all along by various groups. Since murder, treason and espionage are used to maintain power, any opposition groups have been forced to work under the strictest levels of secrecy. The level of success these alliance groups will have is a direct function of how effectively we are moving towards the positive as a planet. The greatest power you have is in how you think, feel and act. Every day. The more you are tested in any given moment, the more value your efforts will have. There is no evidence? You bet there is. In our last article, Terrifying Global Events, we iterated many specific data points that help to prove this alliance is real. And there is a lot more yet to come. Anyone who says there is no evidence simply has not done their homework. In my newest episodes of Wisdom Teachings, I am fighting back against this baseless accusation with dozens of specifics, as I did in the last article. Part 2 of Cabal vs. Alliance, A Tale Told in Cinema premiered this past Monday night on the Gay IMTV network, and is getting rave reviews. I don't have anywhere near enough time to write up everything I've got, and it is actually a lot easier and faster for me to make episodes out of it. These are the next 2 installments of an existing 15-part miniseries on the Alliance's efforts. You can spend 99 cents and watch everything for 30 days. There is only one spiritual Netflix out there, and this is it. I am very honored to be involved, and yes, I do wish it was all free, but we aren't there yet. This is what keeps a roof over my head, as well as Corey Good and his family. It's our job. Without your help, it won't work. No one is getting rich here. All 3 of my shows are available at the basic rate, including Cosmic Disclosure with Corey Good, along with over 6,000 other consciousness-raising titles. Things could be about to accelerate into warp drive speed. At the time I wrote Terrifying Global Events, it looked like things were about to accelerate very quickly into massive geopolitical changes. We are holding back the second half of global events until that acceleration continues increasing. We also needed to make time to write the Ascension book. I am supposed to be on my first vacation in 2 years, and somehow my publisher tricked me into working on a frantic deadline. Everything is a deadline. I hope to be taken somewhere and time dilated into a vacation after the event, before coming back to the even bigger job. The U.S. government may very well go into default and shut down sometime after October 1st, so we may not have to wait very long to see some action. It's that old joke about town versus country. I have said for years now that blue versus red, left versus right, liberal versus conservative, is actually an archetypal battle as old as intelligent civilizations themselves. Ultimately it is the battle of town versus country. The people in the town have to live with each other and sort things out. They benefit from greater networking, technology and services as a result. Townies integrate with new races and cultures who immigrate there from foreign lands, bringing exotic new goods and skills along with them in trade. On the downside, town can start to get overcrowded. It costs money to raise children and parents must be extremely careful not to overextend themselves. The people in the country live alone or in small groups. They are focused on self-sufficiency. They resist and dislike the changes happening in town. Country folk have traditional beliefs that are threatened by the foreigners who are settling in the town, and the integration that then results. Country folk need more hands to work the land. The more children they have, the better their family system works and the healthier everyone is. America is the same thing, just with more land. In America, town is on the coastline states where the main seaports fostered international trade, until the dawn of powered flight in the early 20th century. The largest ports developed in the original 13 colonies, which later became the northern states. Town also developed to a lesser degree along the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River, which also allowed for international trade to get through at a greater cost. Ships would have to sail the Atlantic to New York, shuttle goods up the Hudson River, cut across the Erie Canal, cross the Great Lakes and then travel on down through the Mississippi. Country is the states that are landlocked in the middle, where it is all predominantly vast tracts of flat, dry land. These traditional divides have held up remarkably well in the American election results. Save the babies. With all that being said, let's get right to the core of why we are talking about this. Abortion is a horrible ordeal and no one should ever have to go through it. However, the Republicans are not going to win any points by collapsing the U.S. economy to try to repeal Roe v. Wade. That's what they are about to attempt. A law is not going to stop women from performing abortions. This would force them back into using coat hangers. Many women would die of complications. That's the level of insanity that we are dealing with right now. It is surprising to see how little attention it is getting in the headlines. It is there, but buried. Here is the simple fact: there is no money left. The International Alliance has taken away the car keys. The magic printing press is almost out of gas. Some members of the alliance are just itching to sell off their $2+ trillion holdings in U.S. treasuries, lands that boil and finish the job. The powers that were want to blame everyone but themselves for what they have done, and for the punitive actions now being taken against them. This Planned Parenthood government shutdown is another fake strategy to try to get town to turn against country, and vice versa, once they tell us the truth. Oh, you're mad that the government shut down? Starbucks is closed. Baby killer. They are doing this to save the babies. The good guys are winning. This is a war. It is a war fought in secrecy. You almost need a pair of magic glasses, like in the movie They Live, in order to properly read the headlines right now. The war is very intense and stressful for everyone, but the good guys are winning. We are definitely going to see some fireworks go off before this greatest of all football games comes to an end and the crowd files out. If I dedicated all of my time to documenting each and every example of this battle that I see in the arena, I would never get anything else done. Since I am on the front lines of this war, publishing articles and TV shows under my real name, there are naturally going to be deliberate, planted attacks. Those attacks have accelerated so much recently that they have actually become quite comical in the picture they are attempting to paint of my character. Yes, I occasionally use rude language, forget someone's name, or flush the toilet after only peeing. I am certainly not raping, torturing or murdering anyone. If I were secretly evil, trying to steer people onto the negative, service to self path, I've been doing a piss-poor job of it online these last 20 years. Here's some weird stuff about the Bible. So again, if hardly anyone is still going to church, even in the country, why is the cabal trying harder than ever to attack Christianity? I have withheld a variety of data points I obtained from our high-level insider Pete Peterson. One that I will leak now, for the very first time, concerns the Bible. The Library of Alexandria never burned down, at least none of the good stuff. It was all secretly relocated to the Vatican Library, where it exists to this very day. Bear in mind that some of these documents are vastly older than the lost civilization we call Atlantis. Some books are holographic or made of indestructible materials. There are books tracing themselves all the way back to lost ancient civilizations, including refugees whose home planets were destroyed and who then migrated here. One such planet was a super-Earth that was utterly destroyed and whose fragments became the asteroid belt, originally known as Tiamat or Maldek. One of the most fascinating secrets is that the key books in the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, were found in these ancient document collections. These biblical documents are at least 8,000 years old, maybe closer to 10,000 years old, or more. Pete witnessed and handled them firsthand. Even more interestingly, he said they are almost word for word identical to how these books now read in the King James Version of the Bible. So what the heck does that mean? Uh-oh, David's going all Jesus freak on me now. I knew it. He's finally gone completely over the edge. I'm outta here. Yeah. I know. I get it. I am right there with you. Up until the events I experienced on this trip, I would have never released any of this data. And I certainly did not. My own conditioned reflexes and biases against organized religion caused me to sit on this data for 5 years and never say a word. Until now. Let's just pause for a minute, set our socially engineered hatred of religion aside, and consider what it means if this insider data is actually true. My own best guess is that ETs, that is angelic beings with time travel capabilities, brought these books backwards in time to study them. Time travel is a well-established fact once you start talking to insiders with access to classified information. There are rules, but it is routinely being done. Biblical documents would certainly be one of the most interesting things for these ETs to bring backwards in time and analyze. They may have done this for a specific purpose, to ensure that the timeline where these events did take place was not disrupted by the negative. They may have also seeded prophecies in various sources, using thought transference technology, to herald these coming events, such as in the Book of Daniel. A whole bunch of folks showed up, additionally, when Pete was taken to the New Berlin secret base in the Antarctic, which other insiders I know also visited. He met several different types of ETs. Since this was back in the late 60s, early 70s, the environment was far more loose and free than what it has turned into now. Pete was able to dialogue with these ETs, ask them personal questions, and get real answers. When he asked these ETs the simple question of why did you come here, one answer was by far the most consistent. They heard that a very powerful spiritual event was going to take place on this planet. They wanted to be here to see it, and to witness how it affected the course of history that would then follow. The consciousness of the galaxy, or logos, was going to embody in human form, which is apparently quite rare. This is supposedly what happened when the man Jehoshua attained personality transparency and began identifying himself as Christ. The Law of One series goes into great detail about all of this. The connection between the Law of One and real Christianity is much greater than I had realized. The Cabal can't just whack you for fighting back. If you have studied up on the Illuminati, insider testimony and conspiracy analysis, then you are not at all surprised by the evil that exists in this world. For me, this battle has now become very personal. I have taken on these people strongly enough that if I did not have very real spiritual protection, I would have been killed a long time ago. That protection is by no means guaranteed. Anyone in a position like this is fully, 100% accountable for their own thoughts and actions. One of many things the Cabal does not want you to know is they cannot take you out unless they are authorized to do so, in the spiritual sense. This means you need to have done enough negative stuff in your private life that it is within the boundaries of acceptable karma for you to be martyred. This turn to the negative is not necessarily likely to happen on its own, so you will be bombarded with a variety of incentives to switch polarity. This is a jealously guarded secret. The Cabal wants you to think innocent people who take them on will die for no reason, and are therefore unprotected. Not true. Fishing around for authorization, the negative forces will do their very best to tempt you into taking actions that allow your death to be authorized. This includes marshalling an ever greater number of attackers against you. This is eminently visible if you follow my own current online footprint, considering the numbers of people I reach and the topics I address. It will be the same story for anyone who steps up and bravely takes a stand against the great villains of our time. Let's say their strategies break you down enough that you become increasingly negative towards others in your personal life. Let's say that behind your public facade, you become a huge hypocrite, with a significant discrepancy between who you are and who you appear to be. In a situation like this, with how close we are to the event, then bam, you're dead. Sex is the best weapon the negative has ever found. Sex is perhaps the single greatest chink in the armor that has been used to take down innumerable public figures throughout time and space. I just saw the members of the Australian rock band Sticky Fingers saunter into the Sushi Bistro in Banff today. They looked like they'd portaled in from 1974. After they left, the girls were giggling and running around with frantic excitement. I knew these dudes had to be a band, and quickly got the details. You become a public figure and people want to take you to bed. If you do a meet and greet after a show, you may get 50 propositions in 15 minutes. By the sheer law of averages, at least some of them will be people who would have seemed vastly out of your league in the before years. You start doing that, finding flaws in them and dumping them quickly for the next one, and you're a goner. Sexual betrayals create massive karma. If you have surveyed the evidence and believe I was Edgar Cayce in a past life, and the evidence is quite compelling, then you probably know the story. I apparently fell for the strap in multiple previous lifetimes, and had to pay out incredible amounts of karma in this lifetime because of it. If the same tricks worked on me this time, then all that karma I paid out would have been a waste. I would have to do it all again. No thank you. The negative wants to tear you down and wear you out. I don't want to make this all about myself. This is something that every person who steps forward in any way will have to deal with. If you are thinking, saying or doing anything positive at this point, you are going to be attacked constantly, and feel like you are in a dark night of the soul. You are not going crazy and nothing is wrong with you. One by one, we are transforming the world. And there is incredible opposition from the negative. The resistance is skyrocketing because we are now so very close to a massive change for the positive. The greatest irony is that due to the Prime Directive, which is not just a Star Trekism but a very real law of the cosmos, none of this battle is obvious. The cosmic free will principle protects you from ever knowing for sure whether any of this is really real. This is an intrinsic part of the design. If everything I am telling you was proven to you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, then you wouldn't grow from it. The veil of forgetfulness is maintained in such a way that it can only be penetrated through careful, diligent, ongoing practice of love and forgiveness. We are all in need of some serious healing. Over the years, I have found myself on the receiving end of all sorts of gossip about people working in the spiritual and metaphysical arenas. The number of negative stories I have heard are truly shocking. Really? That guy did that? And that person did that? You have got to be kidding me. I can honestly say that we are deeply fractured and wounded people, in serious need of healing. That's what this time is all about. The hero worship that has apparently been programmed into our genetics is often grotesquely misplaced, and this can be the source of great comedy. I realized many years ago that I should never expect to have a hero. If I wanted to see heroic qualities in someone, I needed to step up and try to emulate them myself. Early in my career I discovered that the people who wrote me the longest, most love-bombing letters were also the most likely to pull a sudden 180 and hate me. Hero worship won't get you there. This fragmentation is all by design. The negative wants us to be bitter, angry and sexually frustrated. It is doing everything it can to tear down our belief that there is anything good in anyone but ourselves, and that there is anything positive to look forward to. If we are this close, it is astonishing to see how quiet everyone is about it. The event that I typically just call Ascension is so mind-blowingly magnificent, and so apparently close at hand, that it is astonishing how quiet everyone is about it. If anyone bothered to read the book of Matthew, the use of the term harvest in the Law of One to describe this event would be rich with symbolism and depth. Even within this field of UFOs, metaphysics and spirituality, Ascension is considered the fringe of the fringe of the fringe. Oh. You're one of those white lighters. You've probably got Archangel Michael on speed dial. Care for a lollipop. If the cabal is working this hard to constantly attack, ridicule and demoralize any thought of Christianity, the big question again is why? It looks like they already won. Hardly anybody goes to church. They control the media and most people see churchgoers as radical fundamentalist zealots. What if the Bible is about to become far more significant and relevant to our immediate present than anyone could ever have possibly realized? Part 2 coming soon. I am in a seriously compromising position here where I am staying. There are multiple guests using the internet over a pathetically small pipeline. Access is basically dead except at night. And if I try to write an article without access, I run the severe risk of losing all my work. I decided to post this as part 1 by itself, because I have no idea whether I will have enough access to work on part 2 tomorrow. In the meantime, I highly recommend Corey's new post. He spent 2 weeks working on this write-up, day in and day out, and it shows. I helped him with minor edits and sentence structure, including smartphone-friendly paragraph spacing, but the vast majority of the text is his. This reads like any of a number of classic Voyage to the Inner Earth novels, except in this case it does appear to be the truth, and is fascinating. If you haven't read this yet, I will tell you the same thing I said on Facebook, drop whatever you are doing and read this right now. It's a lot more satisfying than the tease I just dropped on you. Sorry, I know. Part 2. Part 2. If the internet cooperates, it won't be long. All of this data has come together at the same time in a very intriguing fashion. Corey's journey altered the content and nature of this report. Smile.